Alright guys, welcome to another edition of Poor Man Mods. Today we're going to be doing some more work on my 92 Ranger. We're going to be installing some lowering springs in the front, putting 3-inch lowering springs on it. The rear has already been lowered when I put the Explorer rear in it because it mounts to the bottom of the axle instead of the top. So it had like a weird rake where the ass end was down and the front was up. So we're going to put the 3-inch lowering springs, try and level it out and make this thing sit pretty. Okay, so we already did the other side. We did some research and couldn't find anything to like step-by-step tell us how to do this. Looked up and there's some of the people saying to remove shocks, you had to remove caliper, you had to remove the sway bar. So we just kind of wanted to feel out the other side, get a basis of what we were trying to do. We figured out if you take the shock off here, just take this nut off of the top and pull the shock down to be able to get a little bit more leverage in there to pry down on this. Remove this guy down through.
You want to show them the tool that I used for that made it really simple?
Yeah, we can, because that was super helpful compared to a regular old ratchet. What the hell would you even call this?
It's a 9/16 go-through socket set.
Literally to where you can run this completely down, piece of all thread, however long you need it to be. That came in super handy to be able to get up in there and set it down on. So if you don't have one of these, it might be a little bit more difficult. You could probably still do it, but this definitely helped a lot.
I mean, with the fender liner in there, I was able to use the deep socket on a regular ratchet, but it was really tricky with the fender liner and such. But if you're able to get a go-through socket like that, it really does make it substantially easier. And I could link to a go-through socket set in the description down below, but if not, you're just gonna have to either take your time with a deep socket or remove other things to make it easier.
And from here, what we want to do, we're not going to bother taking the caliper or the sway bar or anything apart. You just got to try and pry this spring down to get it off of this top piece, get it out, and then you can get a socket and extension down through to be able to get this nut loose to take everything off. And then once that nut and that big washer cup thing at the bottom, just take that whole spring out and put the new spring in and reverse the process.
Down. So what we have here, I think this is a pretty hefty 3-foot breaker bar, and I'm going to pry down on the control arm like this, and we should be able to get the spring to pop out from up top. Spring compressors will also work, but we just found this to be a little bit quicker.
And this is Poor Man Mods after all. So we're just going to wing it with what we got.
Maybe we need a compressor.
Oh, no, we got it. There it is.
Oh yeah.
This tab was just way bent up around.
Yeah, that seems like it's way more of a perch than the other side.
Yeah, well, I mean, we did notice my other side. This is very, very rusty and nasty, and this looks like the previous owner had to replace this one because this is still like painted black and has the Ford sticker on it. So maybe that was why that one was so much more difficult. It was actually holding on this side.
those perches look like they might be an 1/8 inch longer. These little triangle pieces. So this is an 1 1/8 socket. Our current setup is an 1 1/8 socket with a 3-inch extension and basically kind of like a lower profile breaker bar. Your standard ratchet head might not fit between the coils. What we had to do on the other side, we had to put that wrench on there too. See if you...
And it is good to mention that we soaked this with PB Blaster profusely before we even started. That's a nice trick if you can see that as far as getting you some extra leverage.
Torch. I'm gonna torch it. Bringing out the heavy artillery and torching the nut.
Send it. Zipper off.
Woo! Yeah! That was easy.
No problem.
Yeah.
Zero deaths.
With the magic of editing, it didn't take 3 hours.
Fucking fuck!
I'd have lost my shit if that stud came out with that nut.
I know, right? It so fucking came out. All the
How's the stud look?
all the threads came out with it.
So basically at this point, because the nut was so hard to get off, we're gonna put some anti-seize on that stud and run the nut on and off a couple times to clean it up. It's not an easy to find nut or stud, so we're gonna do our best to try to salvage it and make it easier to come apart if this has to come apart again for whatever reason. So a little anti-seize should help.
Yeah, I think we're still good. The threads in this feel really nice. It's just tight. Here is the comparison of the stock and the new lowering springs.
The lowering spring is maybe like an inch shorter side by side, but there are a lot less coils, so once you drop the truck on the ground, it should sink pretty well. Yeah, it's nice and crispy. I will pry down on that control arm.
I'm just gonna call it good at that for now. Tighten this guy up to suck it up a little better, and then we'll make sure it's all aligned before we just send it. Alright, started.
Now he's got to send it on the bottom stud.
Yeah.
Now, since this lowering spring has a bigger gap between the coils, you can use a wider variety of ratchets on this, so we are using a different ratchet to tighten it. So pretty much any ratchet will work in this situation. It's done.
Yeah, that's it.
It's really not that much to do. I mean, other than that spring nut being really tight,
Yeah, it wasn't
it's literally like,
hateful.
it's 2 nuts that you take off. The shock and the spring. Pretty freaking simple. Alright, so Moser is still messing around with something on the other side, but the truck is now on the ground. These springs were supposed to drop at 3 inches. By looking at it, I'm thinking initially maybe an inch. It looks a little bit more level, but there's still quite a bit of wheel gap. We're not sure if those were OEM springs or not. And this does have a 302 V8 in it, which is much heavier than the 4-cylinder that was in it. So, I don't know, we think it should be a lot lower than it is. But it's not. It's looking kind of level, but maybe they just have to break in, so it might be lower in a day or two. But yeah, pretty simple install. You know, essentially, if the bolts cooperate. Only 2 nuts to work with. Yeah, I think the truck's looking pretty good though. What do you think, Moser?
I agree. Overall, I'm happy. We'll drive it, and hopefully those springs will settle a little bit, and then we can reevaluate it.
Definitely wasn't a 3-inch drop off the bat for sure, but I think the rear definitely isn't sagging as much as it used to.
Yeah.
So,
Agreed.
I'm digging it. So, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Maybe you learned something, and yeah, we'll see you next time. Peace.